So the first month was really just shock, I think.
We're supposed to be strong and we're not supposed to show emotions.
Loss of your partner changes your life in every single way imaginable.
I just had this, like a numbness, and then I couldn't use my legs. I just seemed to freeze about everything. And I didn't get upset, I didn't cry. I just went into a quiet shock, really, I think it was, and felt sick. I just felt sick all the time. And then obviously I had the children to deal with, so you just get on and deal with the children. But I just totally felt numb. I just felt lonely, really lonely, because I spoke to my mum every day. I saw her 3 or 4 times a week. She was a big part of my life, and I felt really lonely, really isolated. I had 3 children and a husband, a sister and my dad, but I just felt that everything had gone. The meaning of my life had gone, my mum had gone, I had nobody to... If I'd have been upset with somebody else dying, my mum would have sort of comforted me and told me what to do, and there was nobody there to do it. I mean, my husband was really good, he tried his best, but it didn't work. And I had a really tight feeling in my stomach all the time, really like a panic that if I let it go, I'd go mad. So I tried to keep it down. I can remember feeling sick, lots and lots feeling sick. I didn't like other people carrying on with their life. I wanted everybody to stop and be as miserable as I was. I didn't like the fact when I went to work, everybody was really nice and said, oh, they were sorry, but then half an hour later they were in laughing and joking, and I'm like, what are you doing? So actually I only lasted work a day, and then I went back home and I had another month off work because I couldn't cope with the normality. I was all right when I was with my dad and my sister and in my house, but people outside really got on my nerves. I was very bitter. I was very bitter about it. I was very bitter when my friends were going out with the mum and taking them for afternoon tea. And then if they complained about the mum, oh, she's getting on my nerves, she's saying this, she's saying that, it really, really made me cross. And it took me all my time not to say, you should be grateful you've got your mum.
So the first month was really just shock, I think. I didn't really feel the absence of her and didn't really miss her yet, because she had been about to go take on a new job somewhere, and I would have talked to her a lot in that time, but there was just so much shock, there wasn't really any room for anything else. So I cried quite a lot, but looking back, I don't think I was crying because I was sad. I think it was just shock, and I would just be completely normal and then immediately burst into tears, cry for 2 minutes, and then stop and be completely fine. And so it was this very physical reaction. So that was about a month. I think it felt like that. And a turning point was the funeral, which took a month because she was so young and they had to really find out what had happened to her, and she was so healthy. There's just no way that she should have died at 28. So the first month was completely shock. And then in the months since then, it's been anxiety has been a real kind of overriding emotion. And I've never been an anxious person, been very lucky with my mental health, and in particular with anxiety. I've had stressful days, as everyone does, with work and things like that. But anxiety that comes out of nowhere and blindsides you, and waking up with your heart beating so fast that you just feel like you have to go on a run, that was completely new to me. And is completely new to me. And I'd say that is the overwhelming feeling now, is anxiety and catastrophizing every situation, because what happened to Sophie was so unlikely and impossible, almost impossible, and it happened anyway. So suddenly there's this door open for all these things that could happen, that are unlikely, but they could happen. And I think that's quite common in grief, is this sense of having the rug pulled from under you and what's going to be the next thing to go. So yes, anxiety is the biggest one now. It's heavy. It's very, very heavy. You can feel it in your heart. This I do this a lot, this kind of rubbing of the heart, and I notice it now in friends who've had breakups or in friends who are scared, and I don't know what it is about this. It feels like it's in your heart, and even though you know that it's in your mind and it's kind of everywhere, it feels kind of sits very heavy in the chest. So very, very heavy. It's lonely because the times when you're saddest are the times that you miss them. I'd heard a lot about these stages of grief, and I've seen them on telly and I've heard people talk about them, and now that I'm in it, I think, what a sham. It was this idea of moving from one stage kind of seamlessly into the next one has not been my experience at all. And I do think they talk about the stages being denial and anger and acceptance. I'm not at, but all those other ones, and sadness and depression, they're all mixed in, but they're mixed in 5 a day, and then the next day you can feel completely different.
And it goes back to the old school where we're not supposed to cry and we're supposed to be strong and we're not supposed to show emotions. I thought that all the way through with Joanna, my mother, and that wasn't because I thought that was the right thing to do. That was just the way I felt. I wanted to be strong for them, and I wanted to be there for them should they need me. I also wanted to run the room and bang my head against the wall and scream and cry my eyes out and tell everyone how wrong it was and how it shouldn't be happening. But at the same time, I also wanted to be strong for them. And I think we do feel as a man that you can't open up and you can't let it out. Because once you do that, I tend to find once you go there, it's hard to put it back away. I found the loneliness never kicked in till about 2 years later. Okay, so that was when I became more lonely than ever. Because I kept myself very busy, I've got a lot of family and I've got a lot of friends. I'm busy at work. But yeah, I mean, even the house being empty. Okay, so you get home, and so after 2 years, I found myself actually getting home and sitting there and going, wow, it's so quiet in here, it's so empty. Whereas before that, I don't know whether it was because there was so much going on and it was not actually having accepted what had happened, just thinking that you were getting on with life as normal. Sometimes, yeah, I'd sob like a baby, and that it would surprise me how capable I was of crying that much, where you couldn't breathe. You get to a stage where you literally couldn't breathe, and I think that's when people say you're heartbroken. I think that must be the only way I can explain that phrase of being heartbroken by I couldn't breathe when I thought, surely I can't cry no more. There's nothing left in there. So yeah, that surprised me of how much emotion you can actually let out in one hit.
Loss of your partner changes your life in every single way imaginable. You think grief is going to be linear, but it's not. It comes in waves, it's cyclical, it's the littlest things that will just send you into just floods of tears. I'm 2.5 years in, and I'm in a very different place to where I was when it first happened. I think after Nick died, I still had to drive Rafi to nursery the next day, and I look back and think, how the hell did I do that? How the hell did I get in the car and not crash? And even with the funeral, it was just surreal. I don't think I was actually there. I was there, but I was not actually there. But the months after, you're on autopilot. Because I had little children, I had to keep going. I was very lucky that I had little children. People who don't have kids, I think it's a whole different ballgame. Grief changes over time. The way you cope with it, the way you deal with it changes over time. So now, I'm better at talking about Nick without crying and without blubbering all the time. And I'm happy to talk about him, and I get a lot of contentment. I get a lot of peace from talking about him. So, for example, Nick's headstone went on about 3 weeks ago. Now, he's been dead 2.5 years. You think putting a headstone on is not a big deal, but for some reason, it's so final. I don't know why. And I asked to be there when they put it on. So I watched them take off. So his has a wooden frame. So they had to remove it and put a spike through and so on. So I was like, oh, don't hurt his body. Tasneem, he's dead. His body can't feel anything. But even something like that brings it all back. And grief is cyclical. It comes in waves. It's always there. It doesn't ever fully go away. And it'll be little things like the first time I saw a spider, a massive spider in the bathroom, that would have been Nick's job. I would have called him, he would have gone in, he would have got rid of it. He would have actually saved the spider, taken it out the window. And I remember seeing it and I went to say, Nick! And I had to stop myself because Nick wasn't there anymore. I thought, oh, I have to deal with this myself. So I got the vacuum cleaner, I sucked it up, don't judge me. But that's what I did. And it's those little things, or like even recently I was looking through a recipe book and I came across a card that Nick had written. Now, I don't have a lot of things that have his handwriting on anymore, because when we'd give each other cards, I just recycle them straight away. I think I don't need this anymore. And it just took my breath away. And I was so happy that I found another piece of his writing from a birthday present. And of course, sheds of tears and things like, programs that I used to watch with Nick, I can't, and we're like mid-series, I can't watch them anymore. Or foods that I used to make for us to eat meals together with, I can't eat them anymore. And even sitting in this chair today, when you asked me to sit in this chair, it took my breath away, because this is where Nick used to sit.